Hello everybody, it's March 11th, 2023. I'm doing this video on vacation here, so I apologize for what I'm sure is an echo. I'm doing this on my laptop. All right, let's review what I said on Monday. At that point, we really just had sideways action for quite a while. We were back to sideways. Bitcoin had, I jokingly said, had become a stable coin at 22.4, and I just copied the same scenarios that I was looking at, right? Because all four were still valid. However, in the short term, as long as it was below 22.750, I was expecting at least one more dump to 21.3 to 21.6. Obviously, we are now below that. And this, obviously didn't play out either. This final dump to 20.5, we are below that as well. So, main thing that I want to say is that I have been flat for quite a while, for weeks now, since we started breaking down from this area. And so, I'm fine. I'm sitting in cash. There's nothing wrong with that. So the thing is, we broke below 19.8. And what that does is it removes this orange scenario, takes it off the table. I was looking at this hopefully as being the better option, honestly, this 1, 2, 3 being here, A, B, C, was looking for this orange box to hold for 4, and then a move up for 5 to this orange box here. However, the break below 19.8 makes that pretty much invalid at this point. So I am going to go ahead and remove that scenario. We're going to take off the orange scenario altogether, which is kind of nice. It cleans up the chart. All right, I like to have fewer scenarios if possible. Okay. Now, we are looking at the blue scenario as being our only bullish scenario at this point. I have some issues with this blue scenario. So let's go over the positives first. Positives are, we do have 5 waves here for wave 1. It was a diagonal, but it is 5 waves. Positive number 2, we had a second wave hold. Positive number 3, if we assume this is our wave 3 right here, then we did technically hold that 4th wave box. It was really shallow. I would have preferred to see it become a little deeper, but it did hold that and got to this 5th wave box. So those are the positives, right? The action since then has left much to be desired, but it is still possible that this is an initial wave 1 and that we may see a bullish outcome. I'm not 100% convinced. I am not buying yet. I am still just waiting this out because I think I want to see proof, basically. I want to see proof that Bitcoin intends on going up. But technically, this is and has been the blue scenario support zone here. We have entered it. So we could see a bottom at any point. So just be ready for a bullish surprise at some point. It is a possibility. Delving into the micro, if this blue scenario, bullish blue scenario, is correct, I would have to consider this our A wave, a high B, and we are within the C wave right now of this wave 2. If that's the case, I would expect 5 waves down in the C wave. That's typically what we see. We do not have an impulsive move down, which is good for the bullish scenario, right? If this looked more impulsive, I would be a lot more worried that a more bearish scenario is playing out. So for now, I am still willing to consider this bullish, potentially, because of how choppy this is. So basically what I see is a diagonal downwards. We have an A, B, C down in 1, A, B, C over in 2, A, B, and a really deep C for 3. And we should now be working on something that looks like this. A nice choppy ABC for 4, might reach up to 21, maybe a little higher. Kind of depends on how quickly it takes shape. But until proven otherwise, this is what I anticipate happening. That doesn't mean that I'm playing. I'm not saying that you should long this right now. I'm saying that this is what I would expect to happen based on the action we currently have. But again, just because I think this is what's going to happen doesn't mean that I'm actively playing it. This is not a good quality setup of any sort. So we can see this go directly up from here. If it is going to do this, it can continue kind of directly going up to maybe 21.3, 21.4 at the max. It could just continue sideways. We could see it chop around sideways in this area for a long time until it finally hits that diagonal downtrend. So it doesn't need to go higher. It may just chop sideways. But at some point, we should be finishing off this wave 4. And then from there, we should have a final move down. If this is going to be bullish, we should have a final move down then for 5 of C. And the target for that, of course, does depend on how long, again, this takes. Because once we reject from here, we should come down to revisit near the bottom of this trend line. And this trend line obviously continues downwards. So if it takes until here, it could be mid-17s. If it happens a little quicker, it could be mid-18s. But that is what I'm looking for in the medium term on Bitcoin. All right. Now, let's talk about invalidation. Using this area here as our top, we have the 764 fib right here. We really shouldn't see it go below that. We can occasionally see wave 2s that are very, very, very deep that might wick below that area, but we really, ideally don't see it drop below 17K. So below 17K would be our first pretty hefty warning sign if it spent too much time down below that. And then the 886 fib is the absolute line in the sand. That's 16,250. So if it goes below 16,250, we are expecting new lows once again. So, the further down this comes, especially if it follows this pattern, the more willing I'll be to buy. If we get a nice 4th wave here and then we come down in something that looks like a 5th wave, I would probably be willing to buy that area, because then I've got a stop out point that's not that much lower, and I would view that as really good risk versus the reward, which is a giant pump basically from there. So again, I'm not doing anything right now. I'm continuing to watch this, but if it does continue playing out to these expectations, I would consider buying near the bottom of this blue area, maybe low 18Ks, maybe even down below a little bit into the mid 17s. I view that as pretty good risk reward. Unless we, if we don't see this play out and this just continues dumping, well, then I'm not doing anything, right? If this doesn't actually give us a 4th wave and then give us a proper 5th wave, I'm probably just going to forget about buying and just let it figure its stuff out. All right, let us talk about a bear scenario. And I think I put this on the Coinbase chart. Yeah. All right, let me zoom out here to the daily. All right. If we break below 17K, well, really 16,250. If we break below 16,250, then this unfortunately looks like it would be doing red 5 waves down. And, I'm trying to stay bullish. I'm trying to stay on the bullish side of things. However, if you remember from my analysis for the past year, let me just go back over here to the Binance chart real quick. This line right here is 15.7. We really didn't want to see 15.7 break for the long term on Bitcoin to remain an option. For this, I was looking for this 100, basically 130, 100 and 200,000, somewhere in that region as the next wave up. It needed to stay above 15.7. Now, I can argue that it really didn't break below 15.7 by much, so that I can give it sort of the benefit of the doubt if it holds here and starts pushing up. But I do have to point out that it did break, and I wasn't happy when that broke. So it is much more possible because of that we are doing 5 waves down here. And what we would expect to see, here's our 1, 2, here's our 3, this is 4, and you can see the target for 5 down below. I'll just show you this. Ideal rejection zone for 4 was right here. It peaked just a tiny bit above it, but didn't invalidate it. And it did not invalidate, which would have been above 27.2. Above 27.2 would have been invalidation of that. So it is not invalid yet. This could be an impulsive move downwards, and the target below is 9,900 to 11,800 basically. So we are potentially talking about Bitcoin coming back down to 10K. And then, the nice thing about that, if it does in fact finish in that area, is that we would likely have a nice big relief bounce from there, which we could probably play some longs during. We would probably see, 10K up to around this area again, maybe 24. But then from there, it would just be death, because this would be a new impulsive wave down. So most likely death, in my opinion. Of course, we could see something more bullish begin to happen, and the long-term chart on Bitcoin is a little bit iffy if we do get down to those levels. So anyway, we'll have to deal with that if and when it comes. But for now, I just wanted to basically point out those two scenarios, that bull scenario that I'm hoping is primary, and the bear scenario, which is possible, especially if we break below 16,250. Last thing that I should go over, since this is happening tonight, let's just look at USDC. Okay, this is crazy. We have what is the most trusted stablecoin, really just kind of dumping, and I think it's mostly panic at this point. Circle, the company that puts out USDC, had their money in the bank that collapsed today. Well, not all of their money. They have most of the funds backing USDC are actually in US Treasuries, but about 20 to 25% of their funds are in cash in banks. And so when the news came out today that this bank was insolvent and some of the money that Circle has there, or some of the money backing USDC, is in this bank basically. So it turns out, I think they just put this out, about $3 billion is in this bank, which sounds like a lot of money, and it is, but it really is only about 2.5%, somewhere in that range, 2 to 2.5% of the reserves for USDC. Meaning, realistically, USDC is probably fine. However, narratives are very powerful. If we have everybody making a run on USDC, it can lead to more bleeding. Whether or not Circle and USDC then recover from that remains to be seen, but this is enough to be cautious with it. And because of that, I jumped out of my USDC positions. When I say I'm in cash, it used to mean USDC. I jumped out at about 0.995, right when I saw it kind of starting to lose the peg. I jumped out right about here. So that turned out obviously to be a good call here. At one point, this traded down as low as 93 cents. So good call so far. I pushed my money back over into just real USD basically. And I'll sit in that now instead and just kind of let the dust settle on this. But if you are in USDC, you're at 98 cents right now. It's recovered a little bit, which is nice. It's up to you what you want to do, but obviously we've seen what can happen with just panic and contagion in the markets. And I just want to make sure that you guys are aware of that and kind of ready to protect yourself if need be, if this contagion gets worse and if the run on USDC gets worse and this continues pushing downwards. I hope it doesn't. I don't think realistically it should. Like I said, they are backed. It's like the only one that's actually fully audited, and it is backed 1-to-1 by reserves. And as I said, only about 2 to 2.5% of their reserves are at risk here with this bank, but it is something to be aware of. And again, I'm going to tell you what I'm doing. I jumped out at 0.995, so I'm not willing to take the risk of this turning into more of a fiasco than it already is. And if it recovers, then fine, it goes back to $1 and I can use USDC again. But in the meantime, I'd rather not be in it. So that's my perspective on that. All right, everybody, I believe that's all I have for you tonight. Hopefully this was understandable. As I said, I'm doing this on my laptop, so I hope it was, the quality and everything was okay. It's not going to be as good as on my desktop, of course, but all right, everybody have a nice, hopefully safe weekend without losing too much money here with crypto melting down. And we'll see where we are again on Monday. I'll touch base with you then.